Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Donald Trump, well, he's won the 2024 presidential election, surpassing all expectations. Breaking down the blue wall in the Midwest, we'll bring you the details. And an absurd amount of voters say that they have changed their political opinions based on celebrity endorsements. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. Donald Trump secured a second term in office, becoming the second president to win, lose, and then win a presidential race. He's also going to be the oldest person ever sworn in as president, which could create a lot of problems. I've got Ring of Fire's Farron Cousins with me to talk about it. He may be old, but he just beat the hell out of the media, the pollsters. Virtually, I mean, if you look at what he had to overcome, he's old. But what he overcame here is remarkable. We can't do a show and not talk about that.
Yeah.
The impossible odds that he was up against. I mean, he was up against this existing dynasty. The way I describe the dynasty, it's the old Clinton dynasty, the Obama dynasty, the Susan Rice, Bush, that came unraveled. It just came unraveled. The globalism argument came unraveled. The unfettered free trade concept became unraveled. Open migration of the workforce became unraveled. All of the media became unraveled. Look at what he overcame. You see, that's what I look at this and I say, something happened out there, and it wasn't just the force. It could not have just been the force of Donald Trump. There's other factors that are playing in here. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, because we saw it with the Senate.
Yeah.
Especially with Democrats losing seats that probably should have been a pretty easy victory.
That's a good point. In other words, that wasn't necessarily driven by Trump.
Right.
That was driven by a movement taking place in this country. And we're saying, what the hell? We're tired of whatever the status quo is. We hate it. We're rejecting it, and we're moving on, right?
Yeah. And you saw it, too, in areas where Trump won the state, but a Democrat won the Senate.
That is a really good point. That's a very good
ticket
point.
splitters.
Yeah.
And we had talked about that. The ticket splitters were essentially going to decide the election, and they did. And there is no other way to slice it. Democrats got clobbered in the Senate and in the presidential race. The blue wall, right? Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. All she had to do was get those three states, and all through the night on Twitter, the super, super smart people kept telling us, stop freaking out. We still got to count the blue areas. And he made inroads with every group of voters, with the exception of white, older men and women. Every other group he made massive inroads with, or to put it another way, Democrats lost support basically across the board.
Absolutely. Every group that they used to be able to count on was a no-show.
Including union members.
Union, Hispanic, African Americans, no-show. Women, they thought they had women just absolutely tied down. It just didn't work out like that. And it's because what we're going to talk about in this program, I'd like to begin, I just want to talk across the board and then focus a little bit more on each part of it.
Yeah.
This cacophony that was coming from media, the media has got to look at themselves today. And they've got to say, there's a new road out there. The road to the White House is not through 60 Minutes. It's not through MSNBC. It's not through any of the talk shows. It's not through anything we're saying as the media. ABC got it wrong. CBS, NBC got it wrong. All of them got it wrong. And there's a reason for that. There's a great analysis I saw this morning. The analysis was that they're in a bubble. Okay, you've got corporate media bubble. They talk about this, and then these folks talk about the same thing. Whatever the talking point of the day is what's perpetuated. And these numbnuts, these elite numbnuts who believe that they're having an impact on election, all they're doing is talking to themselves. And the rest of the country said, hell no. The number I saw this morning was less than 30% of the American public have any faith in the dictates of corporate media right now.
Yeah.
This makes it worse.
And one of the things that he did, and Harris did a few, but definitely not as many, Donald Trump was going on podcasts. He was going on podcasts I've never heard of. And we're in this business. We know a lot.
We know basically everybody in this business who does what we do, yeah.
And the Democrats seem to ignore that. You know, I was on the Young Turks on election night doing some coverage with them, and I asked Cenk, I said, look, did Harris's people reach out to you? Did she come to LA and sit down and do an interview with the largest progressive media group in the country? He's like, no. And he said, well, obviously she wouldn't be able to handle it if she tried, but they didn't. I said, see, that's the problem. Yeah. They want to think that, okay, well, everybody watches MSNBC. Yeah. Everybody watches
What's
CNN.
the truth on that? I love when you analyze this, that bubble. Joe Scarborough in the morning talking to Joy Reid at night, and Joy Reid talking to Rachel Maddow, and they think that it's significant. They think they're having an impact on the American electorate. The numbers are staggeringly low, right?
Right, yeah. It's when you break down each individual channel, including Fox News, Fox News on a very good night is going to reach 1% of the U.S. population. Yeah. And that is more than any other cable news. So everybody else on a good night or good day altogether is less than 1% of the population. We actually, when we had talked about CNN, our daily views on our YouTube channel were higher than the daily ratings for CNN. Yeah. And when you look at all these other podcasts that are, you know, even way higher views than what we get, that is where a majority of people are now going, not just for their news, but for their entertainment. And I think part of it, you know, based on reports we've heard, has to do with the fact that Trump has an 18-year-old son, Barron. Barron convinced him to go on several of these podcasts, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Yeah. So
he was everywhere.
Yeah,
he's at Joe Schmo podcast. 300
probably
people.
Could have got him on this show if we just made a call, but
well, we own part of. Full disclosure, we own part of the Young Turks, and I was shocked when they didn't even call Cenk and say, hey, we probably ought to come on your show. But as Cenk pointed out, once she was there, what was she going to do? She can't talk. So, I mean, what was going to happen? So, to me, the media issue, if the media were relevant, now here's the bottom line, I think tells this story. If they were relevant, Trump would have lost in a landslide, right? Every day, he's a lunatic, he's a Nazi, he's a crook, he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a dictator, he needs to be assassinated, he's a threat to democracy. Hollywood was going so crazy that they were blacklisting people who even said anything nice about him. These folks couldn't get a job. The corporate media was censoring people in Hollywood that came out and said, maybe you ought to be thinking about some of the points he's making. Some of those people became unemployed. You understand? That's how crazy it was. And so much of this was driven by the media. And the media has to do a real soul searching today, say, what the hell? Are we even relevant anymore? If they were relevant, Trump would have lost by a landslide. How many times did you and I go on fascist, Nazi? We're hearing all of this. The American public most of them don't even know what a fascist is. And the whole attack was built around, he's going to destroy democracy. Well, the American public wasn't buying that. They knew it in the first month. The American public wasn't buying that.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what's further than that. So a lot of the exit polls showed that eventually, as they voted, a lot of people did say, it was like 49% said, yeah, the threats to democracy are my number one voting issue. And then they said, well, who do you trust most to protect it? And they said him. That's all of those attacks, which I'll admit, I leveled those attacks as well. But those attacks ended up having the opposite effect as these people began to think that, no, he's not the threat to democracy. There are threats. He's the solution to these threats. So that was, and a lot of the, media people the day after the election, of course, they admitted well, that was kind of the telltale sign, really, once now we kind of take a step back and think for a second.
Let me correct something you just said. I listened to all your stuff. You didn't get crazy like I'm talking about, Farron.
Right.
You didn't. It wasn't crazy. Let's go assassinate him because he's a threat to democracy. He's a fascist. He's running Nazi. Yeah, you never went there. But when you have corporate media believing that's going to really have a change. And now, what are the shareholders that are CBS, NBC? What are the shareholders thinking when they're looking at this and they're saying, "Wait a second, let me see if I got this right." You spent 90% of your time where it came to political commentary, calling him a Nazi, a dictator, a Russian agent, a bigot, a racist, all this stuff. And you see what happened. Don't you have to rethink what you are as media these days? Can't you just, let's do the news again? Can't we go back to let's do the news again? And let's try to get to the point where we're trying to influence elections, because that had just the opposite, absolutely the opposite effect. Celebrity, same thing. Okay, so he vanquished what I call the old guard. The old guard is the Obamas, the Clintons, the Bushes, the old guard that wanted globalism. They wanted free trade to be as extensive as possible. They wanted to bring immigrants in to do the labor for corporate America. They wanted war. War is good for that old guard. That's why we're still involved in three wars right now. People don't even think about that. That's why the weapons industry has put so much money into the Democratic Party. He vanquished that. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. The American public understood clearly what was going on. He vanquished the media. He vanquished celebrity Hollywood America. Talk about it.
Yeah, first let me hit on a fact.
Yeah, of course.
With the fact that, America thinks that he is anti all these things. He's the one who signed the USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, somehow an even worse NAFTA that allows for the outsourcing of jobs. His Trump Media Technology Group, massive new report just came out 3 days ago, outsourcing their work to Mexico, the company that he says, no, we can't do it. Mar-a-Lago brings in foreign workers. So he has done all of these things, but it doesn't get talked about because that's news.
You and I know about what you just said.
Right.
We've talked about what you just said on this show. Do you think it's talked about in corporate media?
Absolutely
Hell no.
not.
So he walks away vanquishing the old guard.
Yeah.
The old trade guard, the whole let's not send jobs out of the country, let's build right here in America. Let's get control over the military-industrial spy complex. They're killing Americans. We talk about his role in almost all of that. For when his first presidency, you and I spent a lot of time talking about every one of those stories and how he was participant in all of those things. It didn't come out. The American public didn't know anything about it. Of course, corporate media has become so friggin' dysfunctional, they don't even know to tell the story. They think name-calling like dictator, racist, Nazi, crook, must be assassinated, lunatic, that's going to move the American public. The American public saying, hell no. No, that doesn't move me. These are stories, Farron, that you have talked about for years. These very things that he ran against, that he was also doing.
Yeah.
I can't even count the number of stories we've done on.
Yeah.
But it would never came through, and he when I say he vanquished all that, he did. I mean, those people you're going to see their level of relevancy in the years to come are going to be diminished more and more.
Well, and those stories too, the one about the outsourcing the jobs to Mexico from Truth Social, that was ProPublica. So real investigative journalism.
Good.
The other ones we talk about, where do they come from? Well, they come from The Intercept. Mm-hmm. They come from The Lever.
Right.
So those are things that obviously the corporate media is not going to talk about because The Lever, The Intercept, ProPublica, and Ken Klippenstein, who's on his own now, they're real investigative journalists. Yeah. They actually do the digging, they do the dirty work, they do what people are supposed to be doing when you work in the media.
That doesn't exist anymore in corporate media.
Right.
And if they don't have a wake-up call to where they believe friggin' Joe Scarborough is the way of the media, or Joy Reid, or these folks are the way of the future media, if they don't have a wake-up call, not only are they going to continue losing elections, the American public has just completely discounted virtually everything that comes out of their mouth nowadays. Celebrity, let's move to that.
Yeah.
The celebrity thing, you talk about embarrassment for people like, Robert De Niro, Beyonce, George Clooney, Bruce Springsteen, J-Lo, Oprah. These people were humiliated. I mean, literally humiliated. And the thing there's a big difference here. I remember when Oprah came out for Obama, right? Obama was in the primaries running against Clinton. But she didn't just come out and endorse Obama. She went site to site with Obama. She actually campaigned with Obama. The truth is she's less relevant now. I mean, Oprah is like, it's old baby boomers. Yeah, she's almost like that, what's her name, Joy Behar on The View. I mean, it's almost like, I put it kind of in that same class, The View and Oprah. It's just, the American public doesn't care what they have to say. One time though, to be clear, she moved 1 million votes for Obama against Clinton in the primaries. A million votes. It ain't, no showing of that this time.
Right, and I think a lot of what we saw this time with the celebrity endorsements are one thing. We saw a lot of that across social media. And usually it's I endorse these people, I like them, I might do a post or two on social media, and I move on.
Right.
This is not, I'm not staking my whole personality on this. When you get down into the folks who really have to make it like, this is now who I am for the next 5 or 6 months.
De Niro.
It becomes...
Ryan, whatever his name is.
It becomes weird, and it does become a little bit like, okay, we get it. We do this every day. We see this every day. You need to do whatever it is you want to do. Sure, I'm with that. But you're not adding anything of substance.
No.
If you were out there saying, listen, I want to talk about this, not because I want to call him a fascist for 30 minutes. I want to tell you why Harris's plan to lower the price of prescription drugs is such a huge deal for the American public. That is so much more beneficial than saying, this guy needs to get punched in the face, which I think is what De Niro said.
These aren't geniuses, okay? These are actors and actresses. These aren't geniuses. They come through school. They don't take political science or anything like that. They're just, it's all knee-jerk. They could be effective. That's why Oprah was so effective for Obama, when she was not just endorsing him, but she was there with him. I thought the smartest endorsement was Taylor Swift. Because, first of all, Taylor Swift stands for everything you would think Harris stands for. I mean, if you were to see Taylor Swift endorsing Trump, I mean, that's ridiculous. But she didn't overdo it. She says, this is what I think. This is why I think it. Harris is good for this. She was very specific. And it was a good, solid endorsement, and I think it probably moved some votes.
Definitely. And most of her stuff, by the way, was actually more focused on, hey, go and register to vote if you are not registered to vote. Actually crash the registration sites because she sent so many people there. And that, to me, is a much more powerful message.
Yeah, I really respect what she did. I mean, she came out, she said, this is what I believe. I'm not trying to remain relevant. Hell, how do you get any more relevant than Taylor Swift? But when you got people like J-Lo and, De Niro and, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I love his music, but he's kind of passé. And when they spend all of their time making it who they are, that whole endorsement just becomes almost silly because, look, the average person out there watching somebody like Beyonce get on a stage, the average person doesn't live in a gated community, okay? Right. They don't get paychecks with 10 zeros behind it. They have to worry about their health care. They actually have to go to the grocery store and shop and bring stuff home. They don't have people do that for them. They don't drive around they don't have drivers that have to take them from point A to B. They have to drive themselves. And so all these things, these celebrities that are living in this bubble,
it's condescension is what it is. That's what they're giving us. Sorry, I hate to interject but it absolutely, that's what you're talking about. When you have these, golden palace individuals telling you, if you vote for this man, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're the threat to democracy as well, how could we be so dumb? And then they go home and it does not affect their life for 1 second who wins that election. They don't have any consequences for anything.
Are they worried about money? No. Nope. Do they worry about paying taxes? No. Do they worry about crime? No, because they're living in a gated community. Do they worry about the price of eggs or milk? No. I think you hit it. Condescension is the perfect description of what I'm trying to put. I'm not artfully doing it, but I think you got it in one word. And so the American public listens to George Clooney. I mean, who the hell? They have anything in common with friggin' George Clooney? Who, he lives in a palace, for God. He's got 5 palaces all over the world. He flies Challenger jets from here to Europe on a weekend. What does the average American take away from that? How dare you, is what they take away from it. How dare you tell me how I should live my life when you have so little in common with what I have to confront day to day.
And that is what most people think. And then you've got the other, 10% of people who see these celebrities say these things, when they deliver their condescension and they say, well, I vote the same way that George Clooney does. We're basically friends. We are one and the same. I have so much in common with these people because I'm also voting this way. I am also voting for or against this issue.
So maybe I'll get a jet.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll have a mansion.
I think we have a lot of that.
Maybe somebody can drive me around in a car all day long and shop for me. There may be that kind of stupidity, but I don't think it's significant. You handed me a story before we came in here where you said that there is a group of people that does respond. They're celebrity whores, I call them. I don't know what it is. They live for celebrity. I want to be in my picture with this celebrity. I want the celebrity signature. I want to be like this celebrity. Tell me about that. Give me a little rundown.
YouGov actually did a poll a few days prior to the election, and they found that about 11% of people said that, I've altered my political views on either a candidate or an issue based on what a celebrity has endorsed. And then another 7% said, I've absolutely voted for someone because a celebrity told me I need to vote for this person. So you have people out there, and it doesn't matter because this is both left and right, because the Republicans, they got their Scott Bayos and their Kid Rocks and Hulk Hogan's on Fox
They have
News.
a horrendous bunch of celebrities.
Yeah, it's not the best bunch out there, but it is both left and right who say, okay, well, I have to wait for Kid Rock to tell me who to vote for. I have to wait because I cannot do my mail-in ballot until Bruce Springsteen has given me permission. 7% of people say, yeah, that's what I do. There's no critical thinking with these people then. That's the problem. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. You have to think.
Well, okay, the one way I heard this described is that, let's go back to Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift. I like everything about her. I like her personality. I like everything about her. I wasn't the least bit bummed or upset at all when she comes out and makes an endorsement. I compare that to a guy like Rob Reiner, who's a frigging crazy person, who his whole life centers like Robert De Niro around Donald Trump. Or Katie, who's the comedian, the redheaded?
Kathy Griffin.
Kathy Griffin. She go, really? What the hell do you do the rest of the day? But I look at Taylor Swift and I say, okay, they not only like Taylor Swift, the people who might have been moved by her endorsement, they embrace her. They're part of clubs that follow her. They are like Pen Pal or whatever the clubs are now where they write to her and they're engaged with her.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of endorsement to a person like that does have an impact.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't, though, to say, I like her music, I know who she is, I'm going to go vote for Harris because she said to vote for Harris. There is that part of it that they do respond to. But critical thinkers, they're going to, they're never going to respond, period. If you critically think about it. Okay, I want to move to this topic. It is why Harris lost. I'm already, fingers being pointed. He lost because she can't talk. Here's the list I saw this morning. She couldn't overcome the overall pitches that she's just not all that bright. Started from the beginning. She's just not bright enough. They talked about the fact that she failed her bar exam, and that took hold. People didn't think it did, but that turned into the word salad thing. The word salad thing stuck but it was just an extension of she's not that bright. It almost to me became the same thing as if I said, what is your vision of Dukakis? What would you say?
Potato. Oh, no. Dukakis is the tank.
The helmet.
Yeah.
He's in the helmet. He's a little guy
in the
riding
little tank
around.
and
And that's a visual.
Quayle was the potato guy.
That's
I forgot
right.
about that.
Quayle was can't spell potato. Or I'm glad to be in Latin. I don't speak Latin American or whatever he said. So, but that stuck, and the media ignored it, that it was sticking. And the way you could see it is on these sites where you come back word salad, word salad, word salad. You go to TikTok or
Trump's lawyers actually, in the lawsuit they filed against CBS, they said word salad.
Oh, really?
They even put that phrase in that lawsuit.
And what do they say? They're saying there that it was
CBS
edited.
to cut out the word salad.
And then when you listen to what she said, it really was word salad. So that stuck, which frankly I'm a little surprised by. But it made sense when they said, okay, she's not that bright, word salad, let's not have her out there, right? Talk about that. Let's keep her, let's tamp her down. Let's not let her do what Trump is doing, and that is grab a microphone everywhere you can, right?
Yeah, and I will say, look, to these points, and you're just reading this because this is what people are saying.
These aren't my points.
Right. I want to make sure everybody understands that.
yeah.
Because, look, I do think she is intelligent. I do not think she had the word salad in the way that either Trump or even Biden had.
Okay.
She was way more eloquent than both of them are. Still not perfect, but definitely not an Obama. But compared to the other two dudes, she was a Rhodes Scholar.
I'm indifferent about it. I don't think she was not intelligent. I don't think she's a Rhodes Scholar. I'm indifferent.
Yeah.
I mean, she was okay. I mean, she was okay.
But like your point here, in the early days of this, first month or two, whatever, up until the debate, she just wasn't doing interviews. And for the longest time...
But why, Farron?
Well, it's because they wanted to keep her on a short leash. For whatever reasons they may have had, they said, nope, we got to contain this. And I think part of it was, we're riding such high momentum, which they had when Biden dropped out and she took over.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was amazing what was happening. And they said, okay, let's not have her do anything that could screw it up. No misspeaking, no accidentally insulting a group of people. Let's just let Trump continue to hang himself, basically. Mm-hmm. And then that strategy worked for about a month, but then they didn't change their strategy quick enough. As soon as you start getting diminishing returns, you adjust, and they did not adjust.
Okay.
They towards the end, the last 2 or 3 weeks, they tried to start doing more, but by that point, we're already in early voting, so people are already making their decisions.
Yeah, you can't go back and change your ballot.
Yeah, so it was a big misstep there. I don't think she ran a bad campaign. I will say that the lack of interviews after the diminishing returns was a big misstep. Embracing all of the worst people we've ever seen from the Bush administration.
Oh my God, Cheney
was the biggest misstep.
Liz Cheney is nothing but a war pimp.
Alberto Gonzalez,
torture guy. He's the guy that ran the torture program. Liz Cheney, whose daddy killed 1 million people based on the lie that her daddy created. And Liz Cheney said, yeah, Daddy, that was a good idea, and I'm going to support you. She is a war pimp.
Yeah.
Why would you show up with a woman that has blood all over her hands and say, this might be my Secretary of State? This might be running war operations in Ukraine.
It's like if Jeff Epstein was still alive and he endorsed you, you wouldn't say, well, come on stage with me, bud. Everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
Just because everybody knows your name doesn't mean that they like you.
Yeah.
Most of this country has not forgotten what the Cheneys did. I think a lot of people did forget about Alberto Gonzalez, but they knew he was part of it somehow.
Well, he engineered it. That's
right. He was the torture.
He wrote the torture memo. This is how we go about torturing people to death if we have to. That's Alberto.
But we've got an entire generation of voters that weren't even alive when that happened.
Yeah.
So they had no idea who these people were. And then as they learned about it, mostly from Donald Trump attacking them, which is what the Democrats should have been doing instead, they realize, like, well, wait a minute, whoa, hold up, a torture memo, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was not a good idea to embrace any of those freaks.
Okay, so you don't buy into the word salad thing. You weren't sold on the idea that she's not that bright. I agree with that. I think what I saw looked like word salad. Whether she's bright or not, I don't know. But you think that and these folks who say that think that that's why they tamped her down.
Yeah.
Don't let her out speaking. The other thing they said is that she couldn't shed the light, she couldn't shed the ghost of Biden. In other words, the Biden guy was there, up and saying the crazy shit he always says. I mean, he's always going to be there. He's always going to say something like the American public, half the American public is garbage. He's always going to do that. Whether he said exactly that or not, it's going to be construed like that. So she can't shed his ghost. Tell me what you think about that.
I think one of the quotes that I saw circulating all through election night, mostly from people on the far left, was where she said that no, there's nothing that she would do differently than what Biden has done. And even though we have seen an economic rebound, we have seen better unemployment numbers, we have seen all of these metrics get better under Biden, most people don't physically see them. They're not experiencing it in their day-to-day lives, regardless of what the metrics tell us. So when they hear her say, no, I'm not going to do anything different, these people are thinking, well, listen, my life kind of sucks, and it's sucked under him. I want something different.
Yeah.
And you're pledging nothing different? Well, that's not good. You have to differentiate yourself. But she was afraid to. She didn't want to hurt Biden's feelings. She had to still be like, well, I'm a part of this administration.
Do you buy that? She didn't want to hurt his feelings. She was working behind his back.
She was using his same, campaign staffers.
She was working behind his back for weeks before he stepped down.
Well, let me ask you this, actually, because while we're on the subject, do you think we would have seen different results? Let's say he dropped out in February. Okay. Do you think we still would have been looking at the same thing?
Very possible.
On Tuesday?
It could have been different. Yeah. Had he done what we were urging him to do.
We got so attacked for telling him to do. Oh my God,
every day we did a show, we would be just land blasted. How dare you tell? I think it could have gone different. Because it has a natural cycle. A campaign, if you look at any of them, they have ups and downs and ups and downs. And the timing on this, buddy, caught her on the big down.
Yeah.
Even though the New York Times was trying to say, hey, just 2 days before the election, she's ahead in 4 swing states. Even though the New York Times lying through their teeth, trying to take all of the material they can, compile it and say, this is over for Trump. Which brings me to this next step. There's some things that you can't overcome with what I call push polling and trying to change the narrative with polling and trying to convince donors that everything's okay, so send us money because the polls are good, or trying to empower people to go to the polls because if you do, it's going to be a landslide for the candidate you want. There's some things you can't overcome. And the people who say why she lost is the tons of billions of dollars, the celebrity freak show, the cacophony of the media, all beating the hell out of Trump. She still couldn't overcome the border, inflation, and I don't agree with this, but what has been determined is a below average economy. I don't think it is a below average economy.
Right.
She couldn't, and this was interesting to me. Some of the folks saying she couldn't avert the whole woke everything. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It seemed like she was
that's how they paint.
Yeah, she was in office during woke everything. Woke, whether it's trans, woke LGBT, woke everything, and she couldn't overcome the fact that had been hung around her neck.
Right.
And when you look at her in California, if you're really honest about what she was in California, it was anything but woke.
Right.
I mean, it was anything but woke. She was putting people in prison for smoking for marijuana offenses, and she was tough on crime. But nevertheless, that hung around her neck. Those are things they say hung around her neck, and there's nothing that could change that. What's your take on that?
I do agree, and again, I'm not saying she deserved those things, but the woke thing, the transgender athletes part. The Republicans made that a huge part of their campaign.
massive.
That was in the ads that were running down here where you and I live.
They're going to chop up your child and change their gender.
Kamala wants men to use women's restrooms.
Right.
And people, if you're watching this from a blue state, you may say, well, that's silly. Who would do? Those were in the ads that were on my TV, that were on your TV. And look, I'll go back to this. When I was on TYT Tuesday night, I sat there explaining to them because they were talking about like, oh my God, she just lost Georgia. She's about to lose North Carolina. And no offense to them, I really like them. They're all in LA. And I said, listen, guys, I have lived in the South my entire life. This does not surprise me at all. It surprises me that people thought these were swing states.
Yeah, me too.
Not you guys, but I said, it's one thing to hear the media who is either sitting in DC, LA, or New York City. Blue, blue, blue.
Bubble.
And they sit there and they say, no, we're making inroads in these areas. And I said, how often do you come here? How often do you drive around the South? When was the last time you traveled through Alabama or Mississippi or Georgia?
And drove through trailer parks and low-income housing.
It is so easy to sit there and quarterback from afar and criticize these people that do live down here.
Well, don't you just call them garbage and move on? I mean, isn't that just call them garbage, deplorables, and move on?
Right.
Isn't that the thing to do? Apparently not.
And so it's easy for people to lose sight of the rest of the country when you don't see this every day. We see it every day. So these things are not surprising. It's not surprising to see Hispanics breaking for Trump because we see it and we hear it and we talk to them and we understand. We may disagree with them on why they're doing it, but they do have their reasons that they genuinely believe. And once you get out of those bubbles, maybe, just maybe, travel to a red state for once.
Yeah, spend a week there.
Yeah, all of you folks.
Actually talk to the people who you think are so frigging stupid, who are anything but stupid.
Yeah, they make fun of Fox News because, we went to this small town diner. Well, guess what? Those are representative of those particular areas.
Right. Okay, all vibe, no substance.
I saw that
all
this
vibe,
morning
all
too.
vibe, no substance. Now, let me remind you of the segment you did with me. When this all started, she had all the celebrities around her, the movie stars, the singers, and we're going to really get a good vibe, the big smile and the guffaw laughter that she had. It's all vibes. I'm the nice person. Trump is not nice person.
Going on SNL this
like
past
all
weekend.
vibe and no substance. Give me your thought about it.
I think, yes, that is the image that was portrayed. In reality, she was not that to a degree because she had very detailed plans. And I had talked about them in videos, and they were good plans. Plans to lower prescription drug prices, plans to get the housing market under control and affordable, plans to protect Social Security. The problem is when she was up on stage, exactly, she wasn't saying, hey, listen, this is going to be boring, but here are my plans. Because the public can't stomach having to think about something intelligibly for 5 seconds.
So Beyonce, sing freedom for us,
Yeah.
right? That's how ridiculous it was.
And that is what
Or J-Lo, carry a tune for us. And the American public go, what are you doing here? This is a presidential election, and you have these numbnuts who can, great singers. I love Beyonce myself. I like her last album, it was fantastic. But you don't confuse that with believing that that's going to change America. Okay, how about this? Let's talk about the people that might be uneasy in the next 4 years. Okay, here's my short list. Liz Cheney, Jack Smith, the Biden family, Hillary, Pelosi, Letitia Jones, Alvin Bragg, Joint Chief of Staff for the military, James Comey, John Brennan. You ought to be thinking, here's what's happened. You have the largest Republican victory since Ronald Reagan. You have one of the most powerful presidents since Ronald Reagan moving into office. So you're Jack Smith, or you're the judge who made rulings that were just so preposterous, and you think everything's okay? You think this is a guy that's just going to give you a pass? What do you think?
Oh, no, I mean, Trump's made it abundantly clear. This is literally the list. Well, there's also more people on the list, but these are all from the list. I saw the same thing
Oh, did you
did
really?
today.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do think, obviously, with Jack Smith, Trump will try to go after him in some way, clearly. However, it's a moot point because all
It
those
is.
legal cases are now gone.
Oh, they're absolutely, they're
It's-
history.
Yeah.
All these people
Even
that are
the
waiting.
convictions,
Of
those are going to be,
course.
I think Merchan, he's got a hearing on the 12th. I think he's going to overturn it, and it's all going
Well,
going
he
away.
has grounds to overturn it. All of these judges don't have to commit like they've committed up to
Yeah.
this point. They're all DOA. All of these, everybody's sitting there, but he's going to win. But by God, he's going to be put in jail. What? I mean, these are the same people who read Marvel comic books, who are always looking for that hero. They watch Marvel movies, and the superhero always wins and good always prevails. They're sitting there thinking, well, that's okay. He's going to jail. Really? What bullshit is that?
Well, and you know, Hillary Clinton, look, if you've got something to prosecute her for, honestly, nobody on the left is going to lose any sleep over that. So don't threaten us with a good time here if you want to go after these people.
Yeah.
Because well, unfortunately, some people do, but most of us are not acting like these people are gods of any kind. I will say, because you mentioned the Biden family, yeah, they're going to go after them.
Well, Hunter's a moving target, isn't he?
Well, at this point, if Biden doesn't pardon Hunter, then that's just the dumbest thing we've seen from this administration.
You understand he'll pardon him for the existing charges. I don't know that he can. Maybe he can just pardon him.
You can pardon for a specific time frame.
Okay.
Because I
think you're right.
I had
I
to
think
learn
you're
all
right.
that during the
Yeah.
Trump. Is he going to pardon
Yeah.
himself? So yeah, he could say, listen, if he committed a crime between January 2nd, 1990 through this morning at 8 a.m., anything he did in there, here's your pardon.
Why would these prosecutors and these lawyers and all these enemies that have made him so miserable believe everything's going to be okay?
I don't know that they do.
Well,
I think they understand.
I think some of them understand things are getting ready to get really dicey here.
And look, I will admit, I don't think any of them deserve that at all.
No,
but
I'm not saying they do,
but he's going to be surrounded by people at the DOJ everywhere. Nobody will tell him no.
Mm-hmm.
No is not a word that he will hear in this second term. And if you tell him no, you're out the door immediately.
Yes.
So
yes.
that is what makes this, that is why these people should be worried. Because even if they know, listen, I've lived the straight and narrow, never done anything wrong in my life, never even got a parking ticket, what do I have to worry about? Well, you have to worry about 4 years of nonstop harassment and depositions and meeting with, it's going to be hell even if you don't have a reason to be investigated. Nobody wants to go through that, and he is going to put you through that.
Oh, yeah.
This is not
look,
an if.
You know what it's going to be? Lawyer up, spend $2 million protecting yourself.
Yeah.
That's what's getting ready to happen. He doesn't really care where it lands. Lawyer up, this is going to get ready to cost you a lot of money. And that's going to be his MO. That would be my take. And everybody on that list I just read, plus a lot more. If you think about it, Biden kind of did that in his administration to some degree. Tim Walz, let's talk about it. Was he a good choice?
Absolutely. I still think Tim
I know
Walz
you've been a
was really
fan.
good.
That's why I come up with that question. I don't mean that in a demeaning kind of way,
Yeah.
but you've always said, yeah, this is a guy. Everybody else says he was too weak. Shapiro should have been there. Should have had. There were 2 or 3 people that could have been. What's his name out of Kentucky? I can't.
Bashir?
Bashir, yeah.
Yeah.
Shapiro, Bashir. What is it you think made him effective?
I think he was a great speaker. I think he was very down to earth. He was the everyman.
Mm-hmm.
That's who he was. None of the attacks that the right leveled against him, even calling him Tampon Tim, none of it actually stuck. He was the only person running in this election on that presidential ticket from any party that had a positive approval rating. The only one. And it's because he was everybody's grandpa, right? Just this kind of happy, jovial guy. And maybe, I don't know that switching him for Shapiro, because I did have that thought on election night. I thought, well,
Would have been good in
if
Pennsylvania.
but I
Pennsylvania wasn't the difference. All this
Yeah.
stuff about it's going to be Pennsylvania. Bullshit.
because she would have had to get Wisconsin too, which she didn't,
Yeah.
or any of the other states. So I don't think it would have mattered. I think we still are in a country where the public is not going to put a woman in the White House right now. Listen, Trump ran 3 times. He beat Hillary and he beat Kamala. He didn't beat Biden, who was the most beatable out of all 3 of them.
No.
So
Especially from his cellar. I thought it was pretty.
I think that does speak volumes. I think that is, of course, one of the elephants in the room here. But also with all of these other things you talk about, the list you had that was so prevalent in right-wing media, which has the biggest audience, much bigger than cable news, much bigger than all the left put together. When they push that narrative through 40 podcasts a day and 20 different websites.
They pushed the narrative on Waltz, really, that the Democrats have become this cultural freak show with more time spent in placating an army of oddballs than focusing on jobs, economy, education, healthcare, and groceries, and he was one of them. That's the way they tried to characterize him. I don't think it took off.
Right, and you look at the specifics in Minnesota, the job creation, the economic prosperity that they have had, that came from Walz. So he knows what he is doing. He may have this, kind of, aw shucks, every man. He's also very smart. And
you think his career, I think, is dead in the water now. I don't think.
Well, I think given his age, I don't think he had aspirations to be anything more than that. I don't even know if he fully wanted to do this.
Yeah.
But I do think maybe letting him out a little bit more would have been beneficial, because they also kept him on a very short leash. We're not going to send you out to do too much stuff. You had, as per usual with the Democrats, bad handlers. They didn't let the candidates be themselves. Meanwhile, over on Trump's side, they try to rein him in, and he just gives them the middle finger and says whatever the hell he wants to say.
The big division that comes out of this, I think Harris is somewhat, Waltz is kind of part of that discussion. That's why I'm bringing it up now. After this, you're going to see, I believe, a huge division. Strong division in the Democratic Party. You're going to say, like this quote that I just read, Democrats have become a cultural freak show where more time is spent placating an army of oddballs than focusing on jobs, economy, education, healthcare, and groceries. And I think there's going to be a backlash there. I think, and the people who are going to take advantage of it, and this is really bizarre, are going to be the people that actually rode that horse a long way. And now they're going to say, we got to change now. We got to be different now. What do you think happens there? Does that division take place? Do they reassess? Do we have 2 different parties here? What do you think happens?
I think a similar thing was predicted after Trump's loss in 2020 with the Republicans. That obviously never happened. With the Democrats, and it should have happened with the Republicans, and it should happen with the Democrats. We had a candidate that was not only running a little more to the right, but running alongside Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and people from the right, touting these hundreds of conservative endorsements. So you had a lot of people on the left, the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, which, by the way, included a lot of African Americans and a lot of Hispanics. So you had a person who knew how to reach these people, not because of the way he looked, but because of the substance of what he was saying. So if we took that model, and that's what Harris or even Biden had run on, we would be having a different conversation here today. Because we see these few and far between now, people from the Democratic Party, Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, talking about real issues that really impact people every single day. But then the rest of the party doesn't know who they are or who they want to be.
Well, unfortunately, the rest of the party has latched onto this. I don't know what to call it. We talk about it. It's almost like an extension of the military-industrial complex. That's what they've become. They're an extension of the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. They like wars. They want to sell weapons.
Wall Street.
Wall Street's their pals, the pharmaceutical industry. Let's hug them. It's just a Democratic Party. I don't know how they got there, but that's where they are. And in that evolution, they have lost contact with American voters, and that's what we saw Tuesday night.
Yeah.
No question.
And I mean, look, the massive margins that we saw on the Democrats cannot ignore that. They cannot just say
talk about the margins, because it's easy to wake up after the election, say who won, who lost.
Yeah, you just
but
look at the map. Okay, here's red, here's blue.
Look at the margins.
The way that Donald Trump gained ground, the states that he flipped, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, but Georgia should have always been red. I think 2020 was a fluke in terms of that. But the Democrats have to understand we lost ground everywhere. You know, we lost more ground in states that some of the media was so sure we're going to turn blue. Texas, just like they've said every election that we have covered, 6 election cycles now, there's always the stories every year. This is a year Texas turns blue.
We're hearing about Florida. Did you remember 2 months ago, Florida's turning blue? Really? Really? They voted down marijuana. They voted down the idea of making abortion protection part of the Constitution. Who the hell said, was it based on a poll? But I remember it was the headlines for several days. Florida's turning blue.
A lot of it was based on a stupid story. I think it's from August, after Harris had become the nominee. There was a golf cart parade in the Villages for Harris. So everybody said, oh my God, you've got this red part of Florida. No, that's not a red part of Florida, by the way. Because they don't travel down here and they don't understand how the state works. But anyway, they said this is a good sign. And I had to get on and I did a video and I said, listen, this, you know what this means? Nothing. Because do you know what happened in 2020? They had golf cart parades for President Biden.
They're old people don't have any damn thing to do, you know, play shuffleboard or ride around in a golf cart. Which do I do? Well, hell, I think I'll ride in a golf cart today.
So, yeah, what happened in the Villages means nothing. Even if it is a solidly liberal retirement community, okay, it's in a liberal part of the state that is now overwhelmed by the rest of the red state, Miami-Dade. Trump won that. Yeah. We're talking about decades of being a Democratic stronghold gone.
Okay, last thing. No show for Harris at Howard University when all the people that worked their butts off for her for months are there to at least hear her say, I'm sorry we lost, thank you. I want you to think back on presidential elections. Tell me how many times that's happened. You may remember, I literally don't. But there may have been times where a loser didn't show up to at least thank the people that put everything on the line. She's a no-show. At Howard University, which is her alma mater, everybody who's worked so hard for months. I mean, they're out there in tears, and you got these idiots, these numbnuts saying, hey, everybody relax. It's not over. We still got the blue wall. And they're telling them, and then they cheer, and then, oh, wait, maybe we lost part of the blue wall. I mean, it was just, the pathology of that whole meeting was so weird. And I'm looking at these people, I'm thinking, God, I mean, why would Harris not come there and say, you know, rather than, I'll see you tomorrow. No, tomorrow's tomorrow. These people are hurting tonight, and they were there to hear her say that. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a time when your party needed you more than ever.
Called leadership.
And somebody maybe hoping to be the next Democratic nominee should have made that move. And honestly, at that point was an open spot. Hey, if you want to be the next leader of the party, come out here and show some strength.
It was like a leadership. It's what we would expect from a president had she won. You see?
Yeah.
Wasn't it a reflection on that character card, which is a lack of leadership? Of course, you're torn up that you lost. You've worked so hard. You've done all these huge sacrifices. But the people in that audience did too. Yeah, they spent 12-hour days for the last 3 weeks trying to make something happen. And not to show up and just say, well, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bull.
Well, you know what, though, and this does bring up that really good point, is as of you and I standing here right now and filming this, so this will air later, obviously, we have now had plenty of opportunity, plenty of time for any single person, a politician in the Democratic Party, to stand up, to take the reins of this party that is clearly out of control,
Good point.
hasn't happened yet.
Good point, Farron.
And that is something, if I were Gavin Newsom, I would have said, get me in front of a camera right now. I am going to call for the unity. I'm going to tell people to keep their heads up. I'm going to say the fight is not over. We will make sure that we protect ourselves and we protect our fellow citizens.
If your hair is thinking about running again.
She's young enough, she could.
What leadership is that? Not even to show up to say, thank you. Thank you. I know what you've been through. I've been through it too. And share in that loss. That just bring them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Farron Cousins, thank you, man.
Thank you.
That's all for this time we have this week, but all these segments are going to be posted right here on this channel in the coming week. Make sure you subscribe. I'm Mike Papantonio. This has been America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you stories that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers won't let them, or their tribal politics don't allow for it. We don't have that problem. We don't have tribal politics, and we don't worry about advertisers here. We'll see you next time.
That it had helped dirty money flow through its branches around the world, including at least 800...
Plaintiffs allege that the defendants provided money and medical goods to terrorist groups Hezbollah and Jaish al-Mahdi.
This is a well-organized business for these individuals that carry out these attacks. Terrorism is a business, and they run it like a business.
They knew about what was going on for a decade. They absolutely, no question about it, knew that HSBC was washing money. They had every reason to understand it was for terrorism and it was for drug cartels. Took no action whatsoever.
These banks are involved. Their accounts are connected, and they're using them to mask the transactions. The more complicated they can make the transactions, the more distance they can put between the bad guys and the seemingly legitimate purpose of these funds.
They pay $1.9 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they've made, and nobody goes to prison. These CEOs, these bankers that made this decision, they're safe at home. They know what they've done. It's resulted in the death of Americans, contractors and soldiers, not just hundreds, but thousands. And we look the other way because they don't look like criminals. The die is cast. The people that are responsible are on Wall Street.
And they don't look like criminals. It's almost a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, is this real? Do they really get away with this? Yeah, they do.